Thank you, Ben, again, and thank you everybody for being here and showing up. I'll try to let me share my screen and see how we can work it from here. Okay, is everybody able to see the screen properly? Ben, does it look good from your side?
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, would you be able to pass back the host to me so that I can manage the background for you?
To pass the
host.
The host, let me see.
จ้ะดีจ้ะไปดูค่ะ
I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm having difficulty with it.
Just a minute.
So to manage the presentation flow, Ben?
Yes.
Okay, how can I do that for you?
Just click on my name under the participants, and then make me the host.
Okay. Okay, done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so since we are all set, I cannot promise you that I can be as engaging as Ben. I'll try my best, and however, feel free to stop me at any point of time if you have any specific question or you would like us to cover a specific point. Are we all set? Hello?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, we are all set. Go for it.
Thank you. Thank you. So as Ben advised you, this is a part of our program, the Continual Professional Development Program, and we hope to be always active as a community all together to support each other in sharpening our coaching skills and competencies. But also above that is to explore different areas that will support us in developing in our coaching profession, whether exploring new segments or new areas that we can be creative in. So today, what we are going to take a closer look about leadership coaching for those who might be interested to consider certain aspects of coaching or delivering certain services to corporations. So our main aim in today's webinar is actually to explore with all those who are interested in the leadership coaching, to explore it from the professional aspects and specifically to cover defining leadership coaching. What is leadership coaching for us? Its focus, its benefits, where and how is it used? What does it take to become a leader coach? Okay, so specifically, these are the main areas that we hope we can cover today. And the way we are going to go about it is actually the first area we are going to cover is the essence of leadership coaching. And then we will move, during this section, we are going to cover what does it involve and why do companies require or organizations require leadership coaching. But allow me here to mention that also it is not about companies only using leadership coaching. It's about also certain executives. In the case that personally I have some executive clients who approach me to do executive coaching services for them on one-to-one basis, excluding organization. Now we will come to that. What's the difference between having the direct client as your main and only client, whereby we have the other engagement where we have the organization being our the main client, where we call it the sponsor in this case. Covering the current trends to explore the process, the impact, okay, and the types of coaching delivered within the organizational context as well. And the third and last part would be what does it take for one to become a solid leadership coach, whereby we're going to cover the core competencies required, knowledge base, skills, and experience and background. Between sections, again, as I mentioned, please feel free to step in if you would like us to explore any point, or if you have any question. However, I've already introduced 3 sections whereby we will hold and check in with you if you have any specific point that you would like us to explore further together. So, to share with you, it is estimated that 60% of the CEOs have their own personal coaches. Before, it was mainly focusing in the executive on providing specific education, or what we call with learning and development, to equip certain managers on the technical aspects. However, as organizations moved along and as the management field is moving as fast, I wouldn't say as fast as the technology, however, extremely fast in terms of its development, more and more organizations are seeing that personal growth and relationship skills can be developed best through one-to-one coaching. So that's why coaching has been expanding a lot in the executive world, and mainly in the Western countries, and it is hitting the other regions by storm. We can see that what we are witnessing in the Middle East, the hunger of organizations to introduce executive coaching. And I'll share with you later our latest engagements with 3 or 4 big organizations, including banks, who are the main, for example, sector in Lebanon, whereby not only they are calling for external coaches, but they are keen step by step to start introducing internal coaches and developing people to become internal coaches within their organizations. So in general, since we are going to talk about leadership coaching, it is good that we spend at least 1 or 2 minutes exploring what leadership is and what is standing for. So true leaders are those who are able to adapt and succeed in a changing environment. Those seniors or middle management who are able to play a role in managing a change across the environment they work in, or to initiate change. It is important to mention that since I told you we focus on organizational leadership, we believe that leadership is a part of life. Across various venues. So when we talk about leadership, it doesn't have to be in the senior positions. It can be across the whole organization in all its levels. But mainly, when we talk about somebody practicing or achieving a leadership role, it is about having specific skills and competencies that allow that individual to manage or initiate change around him, and to inspire people around him or her. So it is about expressing confidence to succeed both at the individual level and at the team level. There are various models for leadership across the world, but for example, one of which that we advocate and we work on is called the high impact leadership model. And in the high impact leadership model, actually, it is a model advocated by Linkage International, one of the networks that we work with as well. You will see that they have defined the core aspects of leadership into responsibilities, skills, and competencies. And what's important in that model is that they specify that one of the important skills for a leader to have is for him to be a coach and a mentor. And this is very important for us to note, that also leaders, not only they benefit from executive coaching, but actually it is one of the most important skills for them to have, is actually to be to act as coaches and mentors within their organizations. Because as we mentioned, that leaders are actually supposed to have an inspiring and impactful role across the organization and across their teams. And their role as leaders is not to tell people what to do. It's actually to find the power from within the people for them to deliver the common goals and to deliver the common areas that they collectively agree on. So talking about that, leadership coaching becomes a partnership between two individuals or the coach and the group. However, it's about mainly focusing to have or to achieve sustainable behavioral change and transform the quality of the leader, whether it is in life or at the work environment, in both. Once we reach the section, we talk about the different types of coaches, you will see that even in the executive world, life coaching is actually practiced in a proper manner, as it will support the individual in his work environment as well. So since we're talking about the definition of leadership, I love to share with you this specific definition of leadership coaching. So it is an experiential and individualized leader development process that builds a leader's capability to achieve short and long-term organizational goals. So the keywords here are experiential and individualized. The coaching, whether one-to-one or group, as you know, it is not something that is virtual or virtual in the sense of being theoretical. Okay, it is actually a hands-on approach that allows the coach to support the individual to actually experience all the aspects that he's passing through and to be able to find his way through. Okay, so actually it is by experience that the coachee is able to find his way and sharpen his capability to achieve short or long-term goals within the organization. Another key aspect within the definition is, I would like to highlight, is driven by data for multiple perspectives and based on mutual trust and respect. Now, why do we mention driven by data from multiple perspectives? Specifically, when it comes to most of executive coaches, when they work with their coachees or with their clients within the organization, they depend on various aspects of data, not only when they work with their client directly. Let me just mention a part of this. Most of executive coaches, they focus on depending on assessments. So they utilize assessment tools. They do their own focus groups pertaining to other peers or subordinates who work with that specific individual. This is specifically when they are acting as an external coach or an internal coach for the organization, but when they are called upon by the department and not only by the executive. So the idea is that they have multiple resources in order for them to inspect and to see and to support the coachee to gain more awareness about from what is causing such behaviors and how it is being perceived by others. And from there, the coaching starts after building the relationship, is setting the proper agenda and agreement with the coachee. So in that relation, if we talk in the context of the organization, the relationship is based on you will find involved the organization, which means the department or those responsible of calling the external coach into the organization, the executive himself, and the executive coach. So it becomes a partnership across all three aspects. At this point, we'll start talking about the essence of leadership. However, I would like to check in with you to see if anybody would like to have or does have any question at this point of time. Let me see if any hands are raised. Okay. Fine. So I guess we can move ahead with the second section. So talking about the essence of leadership coaching, what does leadership coaching involve? As we said, it's an individualized process that builds the leader's capability to achieve short-term and long-term goals. Initially, it was only based, or actually it was instituted for saving the railing managers, those managers who are unable to reach certain goals. However, now mainly executive coaching or leadership coaching is introduced to support enhancing performance for leaders. And it's very important to mention at this point that the main focus is not only to drive performance at one point. What we are seeing and what we are witnessing is that the organizations and executives are actually referring to coaching as a continuous process of development. So it is no longer a one-time engagement. It is rarely seen as a one-time engagement. Most of the organizations that we see them are working with coaches on a long-term engagement, as they see it as a continuous progress process. So leadership coaching mainly helps organizations to grow and expand their leadership bench. That means developing more and more leadership capabilities within its ranks and for further succession. Helps leaders who want to gain an edge of self-marketing and branding. Now, I don't know if for those who attended with us a previous session on CPD with CMA, where we talked about personal branding. And when we talked about personal branding, we touched base on leadership, because personal branding is not only about branding ourselves as entrepreneurs or as coaches or consultants across the world to get more clients. Executives need self-marketing and need personal branding. All the people who work in corporations, all the people who work with big teams require to have personal branding. It is the reflection of how would they like to be perceived by others. So leadership coaching actually supports executives in order to shine within their organizations, to reflect their true essence, to align their vision with their values, and to be able to have an impact within the organization. And this is the highest level of impact that people can create. And this is why we see some people are recognized better than others when it comes to their profession. Another way that leadership coaching helps others is helping individuals targeted as future leaders who need to sharpen their skills. In that specific area, organizations refer to executive coaches in order for them to act as part of the development plan. Now, for those who are not involved into the executive world, most companies who have a proper performance management system and succession planning, they actually define as part of their future plans not only to train people, but to set development plans for those people to be able to walk on a specific path for more involvement or for more development. So executive coaches are called upon to play a leadership coaching role, so that they can take role in speeding or fast tracking the developmental plan for those individuals. So I'm sure most of us, we have worked with Ben around blind spots, and with our ACC model, we have tackled as well the blind spots and where it comes out and how we are able to support our coachees to bridge that gap. But in this aspect, it is where organizations and executives are seeing that blind spots are also appearing within the organization for individuals, and it is not supporting them in finding or in reflecting their true leadership competencies. So coaching it becomes an integral part, whereby the leader coach is supporting the client in order to bridge his blind spots, which are caused mainly by being involved too much into the organizational work or the day-to-day activities, having his personal life affecting his vision within the organization, being overwhelmed and stressed. Therefore, those blind spots are where the leader coach comes in to support his coachees in bridging. Now, at this point, it is definitely important to mention that we ourselves, we use the ACC model in our approach all across different types and different segments of coaching. But it's worthwhile to mention that other coaches use different methodologies. However, when it comes to leader coaching, it passes mainly through the process that we are going to come, and it's pretty much straightforward. So the coach typically employs different methods in order for him to work with his clients directly. So we mentioned one. It's about collecting data, okay, whereby the coach, when he's called to the organization, he's called to also explore the topic which is predefined by the organization, which is in this case is called the sponsor, okay, and the coachee is the final client. So they devise anonymous surveys or climate surveys to identify certain behaviors, okay, before they start engaging their client. Definitely active listening, which is a core competency, as we know in coaching. But the idea here by saying active listening is to stress that even if the leadership coaches are experienced in the topic, okay, and they come from the same background of the client, okay, leadership coaches understand and they know that the client is the one who's more expert within the organization and on his topic, and through active listening, they restrain or they produce more self-management in not being engaged in those areas. Because most of executive coaches are actually tempted to provide advice as they move along. Helping the client setting priorities, anticipate and overcome potential obstacles are one of the methodologies that are applied within leadership coaching. Supporting the client out of his or her comfort zone. This is the main aspect why specifically external coaches are asked to join an organization. It is actually because they are isolated from other factors of the work. They are not cluttered by the different areas that happen at work, so they are able to challenge and move their clients out of their comfort zone. One of the main aspects recently being noticed that most of leadership coaches are supporting clients on goal setting and action planning mainly. This is where, because of the many factors that we mentioned earlier, we believe that, or we see that leaders are getting stuck especially when they have been in the company for a long time, is setting clear goals in order to move out of a specific situation and defining or setting a proper planning strategy out of it. Recommending specific books or resources. This is another way that leader coaches support their clients as well. So this is one of the usual practices applied in leadership coaching. And definitely meeting on a regular basis to follow up on assignments and homeworks. Now, it is also good to mention that most of the assignments that are assigned by the leader coach to his client are mainly to follow up on previous assignments which are related to the job itself. 1 second. Okay. However, a main key point to discuss is when it comes to the leader coach, the question that always arises is what shall I share and to who I report? Okay, so it is worthwhile to stop on this point because for some people it becomes a little bit of a shaky area. So from previous experience, we can share or we can recommend that whoever would like to practice a specific executive coaching role, no matter what the topic, whether it's performance coaching, strategic achievement coaching, leadership coaching, whatever that engagement is actually for the coach to be prepared to set the ground rules right, and to set the ground rules in a way that is specific and clear to the organization itself, specifically on what areas that the coach can or will be reporting back to the organization and what he will not. Because remember, the organization which calls upon us as executive coaches, for us, is the sponsor, okay? And the final client is the coachee himself, which we work on one-to-one basis with that client or the group. My advice is to be clear from day one and to have it set in your contracts as well. Is when you sit down with the organization is to have an area within your contract that is specific on what you will be reporting back to the organization and what you will not be sharing. So any for example, any specific sensitive information, personal information, it has to be clear that even if you are taking notes, this has to be clear and in agreement with the organization that you will not share such data. Okay. Now, the reason why is mainly not to break the trust relationship with the coachee himself or the group that you are working with. And in order not to do so, it is good that you agree with the organization so that you avoid any embarrassment from the organization coming back to you and asking you on specific details to report on. But how you can make it more solid is after you agree with the organization is once you sit down with your clients and with the coachees. And this is a personal recommendation, okay, is that you are upfront and clear with your coachees. Okay, and could be in the presence of the organization or it can be only one-to-one, but make it clear about what are the areas that you are responsible to report back to the organization. Okay, align with your coachee, align with that specific client that you are expected to report on certain areas, that you are expected to provide a certain report, but make sure that that report is clear for that coachee so that as you are working with that client, you don't break that trust. Now you see me here spending a lot of time on this point. The main reason is, and as you all know, coaching is about the coaching relationship and how you are able to establish a safe space for your client. Okay, and in our context here, which we are discussing today, is it's very important because specifically in executive coaching, the engagement is long. Usually it is 6 to 12 months engagement. So a lot can happen in that area, and it's very important to maintain the trust. Otherwise, you will not be able to work for the benefit of your client. And definitely, if you have any question on this area, we can go back to it in the questions section. So, why leadership coaching? So one of the reasons why is the latest change that we are seeing in the world. It has been fast-paced, lots of pressures on execs to transform their thinking, okay, to keep at their best performance with all the pressures that they are having. So one of the reasons is the pressures that we are receiving and we are having from a fast-paced world. Another is the difference or the change in the business structures. Before it was more hierarchical structure, which was more based on command and control. Now we see organizations are moving more and more to having linear or flatter structures, which requires a different kind of leadership approach, which is mainly, as you will see, it has more and more requirement for proper emotional intelligence and social intelligence and higher behavioral skills, which requires coaching to support leaders in order to master. Rewarding and recognizing individuals within organizations. Before it was mainly about seniority and longevity within the organization. Now we can see and we can witness that organizations are becoming more of performance driven. Okay, as they look at talents which are able to drive performance and specifically through motivating and inspiring others. So again, leadership coaching, as we said, it's about instilling different skills and different competencies within the leader himself. And among those are sharpening his skills and competencies in being a vision builder and a person who is able to having a personal coaching approach to finding powers from others. So organizations are relying on executive coaches to be able to build those skills or sharpen those skills with their leaders. As leaders are being promoted or within, okay, and as we have discussed a few minutes ago, that leadership coaching is about supporting as well in the developmental plans for people on their path. Okay, we are experiencing more and more requirements by organizations to have coaches acting as a support platform for people to develop in their work. And that's why you see organizations now are hungry not to have external coaches only, but also to have internal coaches within their ranks. You always hear this phrase is that being at the top is a lonely job, or being at the top is lonely. Actually, is where executives, as they see themselves going higher up the ranks, they tend to see that they are working or at a strategic level alone. So it becomes a little bit different as to who to work with and who to trust within the organization. It is good for those executives. They feel better when they are able to talk with who they call the buddy or the executive friend who doesn't hold a judgment or doesn't have a personal agenda. And in this case, it is the executive coach who is able to play such a role. Okay. From seeing the transformation in the business world becoming more of a legalistic approach, more corporate governance responsibilities seem to increase within the business context. So again, coaches are able to work with organizations on diffusing that stress and allowing those executives not to stress about those requirements. However, focus on how they can work together on the behavioral aspect and work together as teams. So on the areas or the topics, the focus, the benefits, the formats, in this section, this is where we are going to focus on exploring all of these, because at the end we talked about why executive coaching is being, or the leadership coaching is being called upon. And it is definitely important to explore not only those benefits alone, but also the areas that come behind it. So there are mainly two approaches in leadership coaching. Now, definitely, if you go and research, you will see that there are different approaches. However, I'm just highlighting two main approaches that specifically we apply and advocate. So the first one is where we partner with the individual and the stakeholders on identifying behaviors that are contributing to the leader's success, as well as the behaviors that are limiting their effectiveness. So the key here is in that approach is to focus on the behaviors, okay, which are either supporting in the leader to move forwards, or hindering him from or her from progressing further. So in this approach, it's about utilizing combination of data, as we said, researching within the organization, do some shadow coaching, as we say. And since you are mentioning shadow coaching here, it is about working with the client, going with him into different meetings, sitting there in those meetings and observing such behaviors, or sitting in the office observing such behaviors, how they are transmitted. Now, the idea is to identify, for that coach to identify, okay, those behaviors which are limiting or supporting the coachee to move forwards. And since we are talking it's about observing certain behaviors, and since we all know in coaching it's about the agenda of the client and not what the opinion of the coach is, this is where later in phase 2, the leadership coach actually sits down with the coachee and with the client and explores those behaviors through powerful questions. Not by saying that I observed 1, 2, 3, 4 such behaviors and I think you need to improve in that area. On the contrary, the observation allows better spectrum about the areas where the coach would have to work with the client based on the preset agenda that is pre-aligned, whether by the organization or the client himself. So the second approach is where it is partnering with the client to ensure the learning is focused on relative challenges and opportunities. Now, the keywords here are relevant challenges and opportunities. And in this area, we're not focusing on the behavior that is limiting or supporting the client in moving forwards. In this area, the focus is on allowing the person, the individual, the coachee, okay, in knowing how to move forwards in tackling the challenges and the opportunities. It's about planning. It's about setting goals. It's about seeing roadblocks that might come up as the coach is moving forward with the clients. In certain cases, the organization might request a curriculum-based leadership coaching. Okay, and in this case, it is either one-to-one or group, where the focus of the coach is on sharpening specific or practical skills. Okay, now it's good to differentiate that usually when building skills, usually organizations goes to specific training. But in this area specifically is whereby the organization sees that there are time limitations, they are seeing the limitations of training not being sustainable. And this is where organizations refer to leader coaches in order to work on a tailor-made program, individualized program that will allow those individuals participating in the program to sharpen their skills and move forward. So coming to this section is looking at the focus, okay, and the areas of focus for leadership coaching. So we discussed the main two approaches is either focusing on the behavioral aspect or building behaviors or reshaping behaviors, or looking at a specific performance or planning aspect where to focus on setting proper goals and setting plans, supporting coaches to set plans to achieve those goals. The other areas of focus are like developing coaching skills, whereby the coach supports the coachee. As we said, specifically those leaders, to become leaders, they need to have coaching skills, okay, as part of their total skills portfolio. Supporting for solutions. Flexible leadership approach, whereby a person has what it takes to be recognized as a leader. However, his approach within the management needs a little bit more flexible approach. And this is where focus is. Here, it's a critical example about behavioral coaching, actually, when the coach is supporting the client to have a flexible leadership approach. Transitioning into leadership, this is mainly, I don't know if you are familiar with the HIPPO term, the high potential individuals, or what we call stars within organizations. And this kind of leadership coaching focuses on supporting them to move from one level to the other. Applied strategic thinking, as you know, all leaders need to have strategic thinking and critical thinking. And in this type of focus, the coach works with the coachee, works with the client on developing a more strategic mind in moving forwards, rather than having a tactical aspect. One example I can share with you is such strategic thinking is usually called upon whereby somebody is moving more into a director level or moving into the board level. And this is where we see that those who jump directly to that role without being prepared on a proper development program, sometimes they lack the strategic intake and they face problems with their peers at that level who have been on the board previously. Qualities of leadership, here it is specifically on sharpening skills as well. Building high performance teams is actually behavioral aspect, is whether working on one-to-one or with a group. If it's with a group, on aligning on common goals and how to spread performance and create group accountability. And if it is working with individuals, it's mainly about team management and how to drive performance through motivation, and plus how to know when to hold responsibility and hold accountability for the team. The last one, the type of focus is also another area is innovation and change. As we said, more organizations are requesting that leaders play a big role in either initiating change or leading change. So innovation becomes a key tool or a skill in the hands of the leader in order for him to be able to contribute to the change and moving forwards. So we have been talking a lot about leadership coaching. Now, definitely we have to explore the benefits. Benefits range between what the organization is looking at and what the individual is looking at. But definitely it has lots of benefits, one of which is identifying the strength and the need for development. As we all know, our model, if we go back to the ACC, and coaching is all about raising awareness. Okay, we deepen the learning in order to heighten awareness. Once we have heightened awareness, we have got a major role with the client, okay, in moving forwards. So in this area, coaching supports the client or the coachee to identify the strength to capitalize on, and the areas the client needs to work on. I would like to share with you here something which is actually mainly you can find it when you look at the models which talk about positive leadership. Okay, positive leadership is, in brief, it is an area of building leadership through for people or through people by focusing on what they do best, not on what they need development on. Now, we all know people development started by working on weaknesses, transforming weaknesses into proper skills. As time evolved, as management evolved, we saw that people are starting to support others in sharpening, or organizations are trying to support others in sharpening specific skills. And this is where positive leadership as a theory came in, and in practice, we are seeing it more and more in organizations. If you want somebody to develop certain areas, you don't have to focus on those areas specifically. And this is kind of positive psychology approach, is where you go to that individual, identify his strengths, work with him on sharpening those strengths, capitalize on them. And this is where the person becomes more and more motivated for him to uplift those development areas. And in most cases, organizations are noticing that they are no longer playing a pace or playing a major effort in developing development areas, but mostly as they are looking at the positive, the person himself is able to work on the development areas. And it was worthwhile mentioning here that why just identifying strengths and development areas is very important for and pays off for the organization or for the individual. Give and receive constructive and open feedback to and from others. This is another venue whereby the coachees are able to take a third party. I wouldn't say feedback. Coaches will not provide such a feedback, even leader coaches in the executive world. But I would say it's supporting the client to see and gain awareness about a specific situation, which resembles a kind of a self-found feedback. Another area to look at is under the feedback section is when the coach is actually having a coaching debriefing session after an assessment. And in this area where the coach supports the client to see the feedback that has been gained by the assessment itself. So this, again, assessments can be looked at as a different way of people receiving feedback. Another benefit would be identifying and collaboratively create action plans for further development. This is most of the top high-level executive coaching being noticed recently is actually supporting executives in finding their own new visionary plans and strategies. Actually, let me say it in that area, is in terms of developing the way forwards. This is where most are stuck a little bit in moving forwards, in devising plans, and not only devising plans, but also recruiting team members in order to act on those plans. So the leader coach actually plays a big role in letting the leader benefit from that aspect. Developing sustainability planning to ensure successful implementation and long-term success. I like always to give the example about how we came specifically at our organization in integrating coaching. As we saw that we were doing a lot of consultancy for corporations in the region, we saw that we are studying the case and we are delivering the answer. And this is what specifically consultants do. They actually study the problem and provide the answer. Not much sustainability there if it's standalone, unless you have high commitment from the client that you have. Go to the next level, you come up with a solution, a new system or a new area, and you train the clients on it. Later you see that they are trained, they might apply it a little bit, but later they might falter back. Okay, the only way was through the power of coaching to ensure sustainability, because through coaching, the coach is able to instill, to develop a kind of a paradigm shift within the mindset of the leadership, or as we said, leadership across all levels. It's about creating that mind shift, or that paradigm shift, a new mindset for people to see why it is important for them to carry on and move forwards and provide sustainability. Because the key really here is sustainability. It's not about just putting a plan, but putting a plan, knowing how to implement it, where to implement it, actually actioning it, and looking after seeing the fruits of it as it moves along. Another key benefit for leadership coaching is identifying resources, okay, who are such as mentors who can help guiding participants through their learning process. Leader coaches act as not in the sense of mentors who are able to share from time to time their input, even though, just to be clear, at certain aspects, after, or you make it clear as a coach that this is where you are sharing part of your experience to help in brainstorming, or after the coaching session to help the client be inspired to take his own answers rather than leading him, then yes, a little bit that mentorship role is looked at in that point. So talking about the return on investment, and this is what most of us will see that organizations are gonna ask the coach to prove the return on investment. Now, most organizations are there for creating impact and seeing performance moving forwards. However, this is not a straightforward area, okay? Because like talent development or training, it is a little bit hard to measure the return on investment in terms of a dollar value, okay? Now, attaching a dollar value, it's not an easy task or an easy thing to do. However, as most of the performance-driven aspects or management by objective programs or systems, you would see that you are able to decipher that dollar value into many aspects, okay, as long as we are able to shape smart goals and specific objectives to move on. So once the organization starts talking about measuring the return on investment, if it is a medium term and a short run, then this would be a challenge. The best thing is to tie it up to specific areas of expectation. Now, if I am able to quote or to recommend an aspect to do so, it is by, for example, working on, like the Kirkpatrick model is actually working on return on expectation rather than return on investment, okay? So at this point, it is hard to say a specific methodology to prove specific monetary value or transforming the impact of coaching into a specific dollar value. It depends of how much are you allowed to go into the systems of the organization and trying to see and isolate that shift of behavior. How much does it contribute? One of the areas I would recall, and I would see more and more demand on it, is actually sales coaching, okay? But still, it is very hard that even if you work on sales coaching, even if you are able to instill that mindset change in the sales organization, we are able to see the revenue growth, we are able to measure the bottom line growth, but it is very hard for us to isolate all factors and to see that benefit specifically. So at this point, we come, I think I took a little bit time in that section. I would like to check in if you have specific questions. I can I open the chat box now and I can see 2 questions or 3 questions being posted. So Ben, if you don't mind, I would like here to see if anybody would like to voice his question up until I read the chat box. So please, gentlemen and ladies, please, if you have any question for me, you can step up and share it.
Yeah, you might just stop your share screen so that we can have a full view.
Okay. Is that okay now?
The screen is still being shared.
The screen is still... Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So, I can see here that one of the questions is, how could we help the client to get other stakeholders engaged in their development, or is it a need at the leader coach? Did I get the question right? Is it from Jay?
Hi, Ihab, yes.
Jay, hi, how are you? How are you, my friend? It has been long, huh? Didn't see you.
So the question is,
Great, I'm glad that you are here.
So
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, question is like, say, when you do a high-level leadership coaching, how can we get, now say, the impact is being felt by the others? Do you follow any method to get them engaged with the leader?
Okay, so thank you for this question, Jay. So specifically at this point, it depends on, as we said, to clarify between both things. Number one, if the client is the executive himself, for example, or the leader himself, and you're working one-to-one, this is one of the challenges whereby you are working with the person himself and not with the organization. It is hard to step in the organization and to work with other stakeholders. However, if we're talking about in the other context where the organization actually calls in the executive coach, in that most of the cases, when the leadership coach is actually designing his intervention, okay, or his specific methodology, one phase, or actually what I do usually is I identify from the briefing session, I did identify the different stakeholders that need to be involved for the best impact that the client can take, or the coachee. And in that area, what we usually do is that we sit with the senior management and we sit with the HR and align that those stakeholders are required to be involved within the total process. And in most of the cases, the idea is welcome that we are able to sit down and explain for those stakeholders their involvement in the developmental plan. And usually it reaches a point where we end up coaching as well the other stakeholders because they have part to contribute in that area. Let me give you a simple example for all the other attendees who are not working in the corporate world, to make it easy and simple, is to give you the example when we are working with the young generation and with the youth. Okay, so when we work with the youth, sometimes we see that we are able to provide sustainable change, but at one point of time, we have to work with the parents, because actually the parents are stakeholders as well. And it's very important that we engage the parents in order to ensure more sustainability. Okay, so we involve the parents as stakeholders in the total roadmap. Okay, we don't report, because of confidentiality, we don't report all the details to them. Okay, definitely. But we involve them, and we involve them in the development plan, and we share with them their core responsibilities and what they can contribute in moving forward. I hope that I answered you, Jay. I answered on the question.
Yes, thank you very much, Ihab.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm looking here at another question. How do you propose ways to establish accountability? Some clients seem to resist this despite expressing commitment to take action. Okay. So I can't see the total name here, but thank you for this question. To create accountability, it is exactly what we have been experiencing in our choice aspect of the model, is looking at with the accountability. Mostly, we see in executive coaching and leadership coaching, the resistance is when you are being called upon by the sponsor or the organization, and the client is not well aligned, especially if they believe that they don't need that kind of intervention or they don't need the coaching specifically, okay, and they see it as a kind of working on a deficiency. Now, honestly, to tell you the truth, the best way to create accountability is not to wait until you reach that point. It is from the start, from the early start. It is by creating that relationship which is built on trust, okay, where the coach is able to reflect the kind of impact he is able to deliver for that client and establish a safe zone, a safe space to actually align with the client why it is important for that client to benefit from the coaching. Personally, if you ask my personal opinion, I believe structuring the accountability starts from day one, from the way you approach your client, from the way you are able to build on a trustful relationship, from the ability to align with the client on clarifying, on onboarding the client on the benefits of the executive or the leadership coaching that you are trying, or the coaching intervention that you are trying to share with the client. These are the main aspects of it. Now, at the end point, once you have structured that kind of trusted influence, okay, with the client, this will facilitate your accountability at the end. Okay. Another point is where you see that your client is not committed, and definitely this is where we have to work on various areas with the client to lock in the commitment and follow up on the commitment level, like any kind of coaching intervention. At one point is, at any point you are able to refer back to the sponsor. Honestly, this is something that I would try to avoid, because it impacts the trust bond that you are having with your coachee. However, if you see it at the end that you are having good results, but you are faltering with the client on the commitment, this is where you can call in the cavalry. This is where you are able to go back to your sponsor and say that you need specific supports on the contractual commitments of the client. I hope I was able to cover that. We still have 2 questions. Then we move to the second part. I don't want to take much long on the other parts. Given the fact that the coach is not an expert in the content, how could a coach ensure the effectiveness and sustainability of the plan or even the ROI? Very interesting question. Very interesting question. Thank you, Jordi. I hope that I'm mentioning the name correctly. I greatly believe that what we advocate, what we teach our participants is that a solid coach can coach anyone, anywhere, at any topic. Okay, because as we say, we are coaching the person. Okay, but definitely when you select your niche, it is very important that the coach, when he selects his niche, to continuously sharpen his edges, to continuously sharpen his background, okay, in order to be able to support the client in terms of knowing or to pick up a sharper active listening skills in those areas specifically. Remember, at the end of the day, it doesn't have to, you will not be able to judge from your experience or contribute within your coaching by providing answers. However, going back to the question, it's about measuring the ROI. That's why organizations, honestly, like NGOs, for example, okay, NGOs will not take a coach unless they check his background, and if they see if he has worked with governments on, for example, on humanitarian areas, or he have worked on that specific topic before. Similarly, organizations, for example, they will see if that coach specifically, before contracting, you will see that they will check his complete CV. They will check his complete background and see whatever experience he has gauged in that area. And to one extent, they would go to the industry. So if you have a coach who has worked in that industry, or who worked with organizations before, that coach is able to set the objectives, okay, ahead of time. Now, my advice, if you remember when I talked about return on investment versus ROE, return on expectation, I would personally advise that when you work with the organization, you set the expectations right since day one. And you, since you get the briefing, to set what kind of expectation for success. What is the expectation for successful coaching? And you align it with all the stakeholders. This is the best way to go about it. Another question we here have is, it is difficult to convert coaching results into ROI. You said it's better on ROE. I think the question here is to elaborate on ROE versus ROI. Azman, is it answered? Was I able to clarify also in answering the previous question? Was I able to touch base on this, or would you like further clarification? So I take it that it is already answered.
Ihab, this is Dora. I know I didn't put my question there.
Yes.
Can I very quickly clarify something? So is this leadership coaching part of the transformative coaching, or it is completely different? Because I hear that we are providing solutions at some point here. And as part of the transformative coaching, you know, as a coach, we're not supposed to provide solutions. So, or am I just getting it completely wrong here?
No, I apologize if it appeared that, or it has been looked at as providing solutions. Actually, I will answer you on a different levels. Number one, for sure, coaches do not provide solutions. Even in leader coaches, they do not provide solutions. They support the client in order for him to find the power within to find the solutions he requires. So for sure, it is definitely not about providing solutions. Even as we mentioned in one of the slides, even if the coach is an expert in that domain, okay, the coach still abides by the coaching principles, is not to provide solutions for the client or the coachee. So in this area, to be clear, definitely like transformative, what you have seen in the transformative coaching and the ACC model, it is part of the core competencies for coaches is not to share their judgment or their solution-based approach for clients. To answer the second aspect of your question, is it different from transformative? Leadership coaching is a segment, is a specialty. So we use transformative coaching as the base, as the methodology. And like all of you here, like we have 24 beautiful coaches here, I'm sure everyone has his own segment. Like, for example, if somebody takes wellness coaching is a segment, is a specialty of working with people on specific topics. But the methodology of the coaching is actually the transformative approach. So far, so good?
Okay. Still some doubt, but it's fine. Thank you so much, Ihab. Yeah, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you all. Shall we go back to the second part of our presentation, and there will be another area for us to ask questions. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'll go back to the screen. 1 second. Okay. Okay, and here we are. Can you see the screen now? Okay. So going back to the second section of the session, it is about current trend, process, and impact. So when leaders improve their performance, such benefits spread throughout the organization. Now, this is very, very important for us to say, to understand that what we are creating in leadership coaching is a complete flow within the organization. Okay. If you remember what we say sometimes is that we get questions from our participants like, if I am in a coaching session and I do not reach the accountability side, okay, is that good coaching or not? Or if I'm still in the clarity and my session has ended, okay, we always answer that whoever steps into coaching intervention, no matter how short, okay, they will experience a complete a shift of any sort. The client who is coming in is not the same client when he goes out. Okay, so definitely in the leadership context as well, the organizational effect or the flow is across all levels, and it has a trickle down effect. Okay, because the way we look at it is leadership coaching, and specifically organizations invest in leadership coaching in order to have that total culture within building up. And specifically those who are unable to invest on all levels, they actually invest in a specific layer in order to create that flow of effect. And I hope that all of those involved will see how it is growing. But what we have seen is that, and sharing from our personal experience, is that in most of the organizations that we have had interventions, and recently with a big bank, we had an intervention with 7 top executives. Okay, the change in the approach and the flow has been felt across various levels within 4 months. Okay, we're talking about a big organization, and for that organization to see that the benefit was felt within such a period of time, that organization now is hungry to work on a complete set or a complete system whereby a coach, actually we call it a coaching driven culture, to establish a coaching driven culture. So the shift occurs, and this is where we can see more and more of trend of organizations following that trend in order to apply the coaching approach within their organization. Now, if we are to talk about the process, okay, like any type of coaching, okay, or like any type of intervention you have, whether with organizations or with individuals, it kind of coaches follow a specific process. And in this case, for leadership coaching, this is one of the basic models that is used by most. Is it starts with the first phase, which is the partnership. Okay, whereby we partner with our client, with our coachee, but we also have to partner with the sponsor. In that case, is the organization. Okay, so at that level, it is very important, as I stressed, is that here where we build the trust zone, okay, with the coachee, especially if we are called upon by the sponsor. On the awareness level, I'm sure all of you know at this level where what we focus on is for that specific topic, which we have aligned and we got a proper debriefing from our sponsors on, is where we work on the awareness level, raising the awareness of the individual on it's a kind of trying to build a 360 approach with the client on the topic to be explored, in order to establish at this point the high level interest from the coachee to move forwards. The third level is the plan, whereby the coach works with the coachee in order to set a plan and to gain commitment from the coachee on the specific steps to move forward in relation to the main goal and the main topic which have been defined in the partnership aspects. The fourth level is the performance, and this is where the plan needs to be structured on proper expectations on how the performance should look like. And in this area where the what we referred to as the ROE before, it is more deciphered, because now there is more clarity about the way of moving forwards. And in order to measure and to hold accountability at that level in the planning, we need to go into the minute details of setting the right expectation with the coachee. At the performance level, we look at the commitment level of the client, a commitment level, and to hold, to be able to support, motivate, challenge, and devise support tools for the client in moving forwards. Progress is where not only we highlight specific measures for the performance, but here in the progress is where we have sessions and ongoing sessions with the client to look at and reflect about the progress within the organization context towards the topic that has been set, allowing the client in order to see and recognize the steps that have been done. And in that, I would say that mostly if it is working well, most of the progress would be in terms of experiencing the acknowledgement and helping the client to move forwards and further and faster. Sorry for that. So for the types of engagements, if we look at the types of engagement for leadership coaching, is we have two ways of differentiating the types of engagement. One is only looking about the mode of engagement between the coach and the organization. So it is either to become an internal coach or an external coach. An internal coach, as you know, is where the organization develops one of its associates. He's part of and a member of the organization, works closely with the teams as part of a specific role as an internal coach, or double hatting between having a role in the organization and also acting as a mentor coach to specific levels within the organization. If we are to compare the benefits and the pros and cons between internal and external coaches, this is a discussion that goes on long and long between different people looking at that topic. Some people advocate that internal coaches are compromised. Okay, they are too much entrenched in the business. It's better to use external coaches. While others say the total opposite. External coaches do not have the total insights. Okay, and they prefer to use internal coaches. So the way we can differentiate is about the type, the context of the engagement. However, which is better to use, this is better left to the topic, to the organization itself, the level of maturity. But I myself would advocate both types. I advocate for organizations to have their internal coaches, better yet, to be supported by external coaches from time to time. One-on-one coaching versus group coaching, I'm sure all of you know the difference. But in this case, what we have noticed is the growing role of the shadow coaching, whereby working one-on-one or one-to-one, the coach is asked to actually, he devises a way to continuously support the coachee, sometimes by being present, and as we said, present in different meetings, different contexts, to observe different behaviors. Career coaching, it is the main focus is about supporting execs into their career progress or career progression, and this is where mostly it is the career coaching sometimes is mostly called by HR as a mode of intervention to explore or clarify career planning and career paths within the organization as part of an additional retention tool within the organization. Life coaching, as I mentioned earlier when we started, and we said that leadership coaching goes under the executive coaching aspect. However, life coaching is finding its way more and more as a specialty within organizations, as organizations are seeing that the people involved in their organizations are humans, and they have their personal lives, and most of the personal problems come and hinder the people in their performance. So life coaching is finding its way within the executive world as well, and leadership coaches actually tackle such type of coaching engagement as they coach the person as a whole, okay, and not only a person, an individual, as aspect of the organization in a specific area. That's why we mentioned that certain details are allowed for the coach not to share. That's part of the confidentiality agreement. But because during leadership coaching, the coach will tackle part of life coaching, which is related to the personal life of the individual. Another way to differentiate types of coaching is what the depth, the level to which the coaching goes. For example, at the task or skill oriented learning, that type of coaching where the coach is actually works mostly with horizontal learning on the various aspects other than the skill itself. The core focus is mainly geared on developing that skill specifically as called upon with that contract. Another deeper level, a little bit deeper level in that context, is performance coaching, where it is the coach's focus is finding or supporting the client in finding areas which are impacting the performance, and these could be behavioral or technical. But in that aspect, I would say that the sphere of intervention for the coach is actually widened a little bit. That sphere is where the coach tackles or works with other individuals or other stakeholders within the organization. At the developmental level or developmental coaching, this type is where the coach takes a more deeper dive. And in this area, the coach works heavily with the HR and with the senior level for that position specifically in setting developmental plans and moving forwards. So the type of intervention, we call it as a deeper intervention within the organization, as it requires a deeper dive within the organization by the coach. Talking about the impact, I wouldn't say that it's similar to talking about the benefits. However, it's all about the core impact of leadership coaching is about encouraging clients to be open to change, to step up, and be more responsible as corporate citizens. And we say corporate citizens because they live in an environment that has different dynamics in moving forwards. So the impact, if I am to talk about the impact, I would go back to what we discussed in the trends and the flow process, where we discussed that the impact is felt across the organization in total. As the organization embraces leadership coaching, as people are changing their mindset, are experiencing a paradigm shift to the way they are looking at the business, as leadership coaches supporting leaders to become more confident, to step up and own up to the change process or where they are moving. This is where the impact is felt on different levels, and specifically it is felt at the bottom line level. I'm conscious about our time, so I'll try to wrap up at this section. So allow me to move forwards a little bit. So the impact areas of leadership coaching are to develop effective leadership styles and manners, engage in succession planning and management. These are the different areas we're mentioning, different areas where you can feel the impact. Improve interpersonal and communication skills, speed up personal development, develop superstar workers, and find the usual combination of work-life balance. As we say, the balance is not necessarily to be 50-50 percentage. It is a hybrid of what the client or the coachee values the most. Expedite priority settings and time management. This is another area of impact where we see leadership coaches involved in. Enhance presentation and network skills, and engage in career development and planning. So being mindful about the time, I wouldn't like to hold you further. So at this point, I would jump to the final section of receiving questions for this side. And let me stop the sharing 1 second. So I would like at this point to invite you to pose your questions for the second and last section of the presentation. In the meantime, until we receive your questions, I'm just going over the chat to see if there is any question that you would like us to move on. Ladies, gentlemen?
Hey, Ihab, this is Carmen.
Yes, Carmen?
So the question is relating to earlier you mentioned about especially for the case when it is a company with a sponsor hired a coach. So about the building trust and engagement, is it quite often that maybe when the executive, when you like first speak to them, they will be a bit like suspicious to think, or maybe the company hire you with like a hidden agenda or something that they probably want the coach to deliver the message to them. I don't know if that may happen, and any like tips or things that how to build like more trust and get build the trust to get it started with more engagement from the client.
Perfect. Actually, this is one of the main areas that leadership coaches and executive coaches face when dealing with associates within any organization. It is mostly when they are called upon by the organization, which we refer to as the sponsor. And if those executives are not well onboarded by the organization itself or by the HR, definitely there is a high level of suspicion in as to what's behind that coaching intervention and what will be reported back to the organization, what will be shared with those stakeholders. So my advice at that point is definitely to have an upfront relationship first with the sponsor about agreeing what will be shared and what will be held confidential by the coach during his intervention with the coachee. And after setting that both as a gentleman agreement and also as a contract, definitely my advice is that you align with the coachee themselves and you onboard them and you build a trust bond since the start. And most importantly is whatever you build and design with the coachees at the start in your discovery sessions, or in every session that you sit down together, you reinforce that trust bond that you have created. The most important thing is not to compromise it and to be conscious, especially when you are sharing your reports and coming back to the organization, is be mindful of what is sensitive and what goes to what you aligned with the client on what you can report or what you cannot report back. From a personal experience, we have been called upon an organization, and not only everybody was suspicious about that intervention. The problem is that the organization has worked with 3 coaches before, and all the 3 coaches broke the trust bond with the coachees, and they have shared sensitive information with the organization, which led to havoc within the organization. So it took us actually a few sessions with all those involved with the coaches in order to build that trust bond. And I would say, even though we have done it in few sessions, we kept on the next few months being mindful that people are sensitive to such matter. So the best thing to build it is build it from the start, build it by being upfront about it, agree with the organization as to what you cannot break with your clients, and really be mindful not to break it.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. So before we wrap up our session, any further questions before we hand over to Ben? I can see lots of interesting questions raised this session. So if you would like us to focus on any specific area, we would be more than happy to clarify.
Okay, I think we have come almost up to the end of our session. So by the show of hand, who would like to be a leadership coach? Anyone brave enough to?
1, 2, 3.
Well, certainly one of the I felt that it might be very needful to be able to differentiate between a leadership coach and an executive coach, because I felt that it's much more challenging to be a leadership coach. Well, in the sense that leadership coach has to work more, not necessarily that executive coach don't. But usually in the real business case, executive coach tend to focus more on the skill development of individual and helping them to do certain things better. So they tend to focus more on the executive functioning of the individual, the how-to aspect of their effectiveness level. Often than not, leadership coach tend to be much more expensive in the sense that they're looking more for working with that particular individual in terms of competency development, as in not just the how to do certain things better, but what about that? No. It's not about executive coach tend to work with the what aspect, but the leadership coach focus more on how to do that what aspect in a way that allows them to delivers maximum impact for the organization. And often or not, you need to be very familiar with some leadership dynamics, and also in the area of certain matrices, for you to be able to deal with certain issues. Like, for example, this guy have problems with conflict. He doesn't seem to be able to talk well with all his direct reports. So you need to be able to come up with a framework that allow him to sort of like see on paper that this, if you are score on high here, low on here, this is how you are being described. How is that showing your current reality? So often or not, you have to go and look for such little metrics that is available to opens up the blind spot in that particular specific issues that you're dealing with. So it does takes a lot much more effort to be a leadership coach, and therefore the price tag is slightly higher. Okay, so for those who aspire to be a leadership coach, now please make sure that you continue to develop your knowledge aspect of your as being the knowledge aspect, not just the not just the transformative approach in running the conversation, but you need to build that leadership dynamics on top of the clarity conversation. Okay, so lots much more to do. Okay, great. So thank you everybody for joining us for today. Please still stay back if your time allows you, and if you do have questions that you'd like to deep dive together with Ihab, Julia, and we have some program director here. We have Julia here. Who else is here? Jay here. Maybe we just get Julia to share, because Julia is also, been working in performance leadership for quite a while. Just let's hear from her. Julia, anything else you would like to add on to what Ihab has shared?
No, I appreciate you have such clarity in the content. I learned so much today on differentiating it so clearly. I really do appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything to add on for your
Thank you.
personal experience?
I think the area about the difference between leadership coach and executive coach here, it really makes us become more. We have to focus. Where do we have to focus to help our client? It's really differentiated. Yeah.
Yes.
The ability to know the difference and help our client in the appropriate manner. So that's the main area that I really appreciate. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So be very wise when you're picking up contract. To be very clear, is the sponsor looking for executive functioning development or competency development? Because they are very different in the HR. In the HR industry. So you want to make sure that you are aware of the difference between the two. Okay, thank you. Jay, anything you'd like to share with our students based on your experience? I know you've been doing a lot of coaching with some of the senior management back in Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Ben. So as coaches, I would like to invite you to continue, if you wish to choose this field of leadership coaching, I would invite you to be courageous and be sure of your transformative coaching process that you learned. It's a pure coaching, and in addition to that, getting engaged with a leader, like as Ben also takes like the dynamics of that, the leadership dynamics.
Yes.
So I think if you can build on that and those observations while you are engaging in various assignments, you're going to be a great coach. So that's my invitation. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Jay. How about Long Knock? I happen to see anything. I know that you've been working for quite a while with some projects with coaching leaders. You want to share your experience with some of our coaches here?
I think we particularly need to pay attention to our language,
Yeah.
to really be part of their world.
Yes.
So maybe that's also when you need to build up more knowledge so that you really create an affinity
Precisely.
and anchor the trust bonds as we have underlined. Yeah.
Great. So thank you. So, well, let me end off with quick announcement. Next week, no, next month, CPD will have Miss Alina, the Director of Training for India. She would like to share with you on managing coaching contract. We have heard a lot of you making requests saying that no, it's not fair. In real life, we don't just have a single coaching conversation with one client. We have a couple of sessions with one single client. How do I go about managing it? So Alina would like to be able to share her experience based on case study approach on some of the things that you should be aware of and some of the things that she has made mistake so that you do not have to follow her footsteps. So she will be sharing her own experience. So join us in next month. It will be two separate date. It will be updated and in the forum with the with the registration for you to with the URL link for you to register. So, and the last one is for those who are going for the advanced training. Please make sure that you let Maya know before end of this month because we already want to get the group started with the pre-course work and at least to work on your pre-course coaching conversation and to be sending it up before you start your training on the first week of December. Okay, so with that in mind, thank you everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye. And for those who would want to have a one-to-one dialogue session with Ihab, I think you will be still here to answer some of your questions that you might not have an opportunity to do so during when everybody is here. Okay, we'll hold the conference room for a while for anyone who would like to have a dialogue with Ihab in regards on today's topic. Great. Hi, Nog. Go ahead, Nog.
Hi. Actually, I have a question, and I think it was raised in the chat box. It's about the tools, the assessment tools. My understanding is that you need to rely on assessment tools. And actually, my question is, do you need to rely on assessment tools?
So, Ihab?
Yes. So what I hear you say actually is you're exploring the point that was mentioned on the assessment tools, whether you should rely on those assessment tools or not.
Yeah.
To clarify that point is that in general, most of leadership coaches, they rely on assessment tools or various, not only assessment tools, but various tools that will allow them to have more information about the behavior, especially when it comes to the behavioral situations, or also whether it is about the skills they align with are to expand their briefing about the topic. So assume that as a leader coach, you are taking a briefing from the HR or the stakeholders about the situation. Those tools, whether surveys, observations, focus groups, assessments, all of these become good tools for the coach to have an expanded brief and to be able to highlight first certain aspects to know how to explore the situation with the client. So it's not a must, to be clear, it's not a must, but it's a plus.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
you.
you. No, Yodi, go ahead, Yodi.
Yeah, still around the assessment tools. I'm clear when we talk about leadership coach, which is relative to competencies. We can do assessment tool like 360. But when it comes to executive coaching, the same question, it is still need the assessment tool like 360 for executive coaches.
I think, Yodi, we need to understand a tool is we don't serve the tool serve us. So let's take an example of a typical case whereby, sponsor has a group of line managers, let's say head of department, and their goal is how can they improve in their leadership. In that context, you need to be able to get some form of feedback in terms of where they are. I mean, of course, you can base on just oral interview. In your coaching conversation, you get the details. But remember, you have only limited time working with this very super busy executive. You do not want to spend your time interviewing them to get their input on how other people is viewing them or what they are viewing themselves. You want to make sure that data are, I call it evidence, because I'm working with behaviors and I don't care what you say. I don't care how you feel. If the data shows otherwise, it's otherwise. We need to have evidence. Evidence as a way to reflect back of the objective reality and using that to assess our subjective reality and make calibration. So as a coach, you need to be able to gain access to those data before you even meet the client. You see what I mean? You can't just pop out and ta-da, I'm your coach. Let's have a coaching conversation.
Okay.
It doesn't work that way, okay?
Okay.
So you need to be able to gain access to those data. Now, usually my practice is that I'm aware 90% of those organizations who can afford coaching for me to coach their staff will have their own feedback systems, either in-house, using their own in-house metrics. If their HR function roles are very strong, they usually design their in-house feedback system and metric system that they can measure their own staff or whatever that is. Or they may rely on an external systems that they do have an existing data. Okay, so I will certainly get hold of those data. Only in rare cases that I will recommend my tool to them. It's really based on the sponsor's agenda. Those occasions are where this person has to be assumed a higher responsibility, not at the vertical level, but not at the horizontal level, but at the vertical level. Like for example, moving on to be a CEO or moving on to a director role. Then I need to have a very specific insight on certain shadow strength that might not be obtained in their current data. So I would therefore insist that it needs to be included here as part of the system. But again, trust me, clients are very, very reluctant to do 360 feedback or assessment too. Okay, they see that as evidence against them. Okay, so you need to be very, very mindful. So I would love to mind, if I can, I avoid that. But I will certainly mine for the existing data that allowed me to gain a sense of the evidence at hand to size up the case before I actually meet the client to work on their agenda on how we can use this data to serve them. Okay, so you have to walk through very carefully, because my first session with that is basically getting their input on what are they feeling thinking about those data that is being presented to them. And I will remain very, very neutral. Even if they disagree, I will show to them that I agree with you, that we can disagree with you, that all these data are not accurate. I will take it on the basis of trust unless proven otherwise. So that is how we use the tool. It's not
Okay.
really the must or not, but you need to understand what do they do, what are their roles in your coaching process.
Okay. I think I got the answer from the very first sentence that you say. Even executive, they have a direct report, something like that. So I understood perfectly.
You need to get evidence. You need to get evidence from them as to how they are showing up as their leader, and use that as a basis of awareness and allow clarity to surface from those evidence.
Thank you, Ben.
Got it? And I don't trust the coaching conversation itself to gather those data. I need to have the concrete evidence from the feedback that they actually do it in-house.
Thank you.
Got it? Thank you. Any other questions that you want, that you'd like to have a dialogue around?
Hi, Ben and Ihab. This is Dora again. First of all, thank you. I think it was very
Yes.
insightful and very great presentation. So I really appreciate it. I've got two questions. One
Thank
is
you.
more yes or no answer. Would you be sharing your presentation?
Will we be sharing?
Ben, yes, I think yes.
Okay, if it's not possible,
We are all
then
one, so we'll share all the information
okay.
we have all together as one group.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And the second one, I may sound a bit stupid here again, because I just want to be really clear in differentiating between a leadership coaching and executive coaching. So am I correct to say when you say leadership coaching, it's more of an organizational development, it's like more people, rather than executive coaching is like more specific to a executive? So that one I understood of the executive coaching, but when you say leadership, is it like competencies and more than one executive?
It will be easier to see one executive as more functional.
One functional.
Executive as equal to functional.
Okay,
the line are very
got
thin.
it.
The line are very thin, but it does make a difference in my niche market, that I'm very careful to choose that I'm not doing functional coaching. And how do you know whether is it or not? Trust me, your sponsors, the client doesn't know.
Right.
But if they are looking for, if their clients are basically managers, head of department, very likely they are functional coaching in helping them to do the what better. And therefore, the charge rate usually for that are below $750 per session. Okay. Rarely there will be how to do the what better. Those are usually the talent that the company are prepared to invest to take their leadership to the next level. So they are most probably talking about a particular stars in the company that is not really performing according to their specs, or through the 360 feedback, the HR is being alerted that, hey, something is not, we got a lot of, team disengagement coming on and stuff like that. So then we will have to then, come in to work with how is this person doing, achieving the what expect. So they tend to include a lot of those coaching for performance issues, that is the gap issue down there at a much higher level, or right now mostly it's about really promoting them to the next level of their leadership capacity at the director role or at the CEO role. And that's why it's more working with not just the functionality aspect, but how am I going to operate the function at optimum level with my teams, or with basically with their teams. See the difference there?
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been on the receiving end, being a client of bringing in your consultants to help us with either performance development or building our leaders. So yeah, and being in the receiving end, it's so difficult to see it, how as a coach you would view it. So just trying to figure that two things. Yeah.
So part of my ROI with my clients is to ready to differentiate the functional role and the competency level. So if after the consultation, it tends to lean towards the competency level, and they do agree that it is leaning towards the competency level, then they must be prepared to pay for a higher bill.
Of course.
Because working with an individual is much more challenging than working with an individual on the what aspect, functionality aspect of it.
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's how the bills are very different. Okay.
Thank you again.
Okay, precisely.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to continue the dialogue? So now's the time for you to squeeze your juice. Inside story of how to make it work. Got it? Good. So I think almost all of you are complete. You're just waiting for another people to ask a question. So you can see that everybody got no other questions. So have fun and watch out for 2018. And watch, if you are interested in the leadership coach component, watch out for 2018. We'll be rolling out a series of extension module. One of those modules will be on leadership transition coaching is more ready for those people who felt called to work more with leaders, so that will be going that. So we'll be going through an extension module on that regard. Okay, so with that, take care.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Bye.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Ben.
It's okay, Joanne. We are here. Yeah.
Okay. I want you and Ihab to really help me out here. But I was waiting for everyone to go.
No problem.
Okay. I'm trying to exercise confidentiality, coming from the sales background.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah,
Hi, Casey. See you. Bye-bye, Casey.
Okay.
I'll catch up with you when in November there. Bye.
I have Dongo. Ben, stay there. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Now I have the right people here. Now, first of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me into this session, knowing very well